Wow. So right now you are doing everything with Blender BIM?
Yep, everything.
Oh my God. Oh my God, man. This is huge. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done. Okay. Hello, friends. Welcome back to BIMvoice. Today I have the pleasure to talk to Lloyd Bussio, or how you know him, actually. Most of you will know him as a IFC architect, if I'm correct.
That's right. Yeah.
Welcome, Lloyd. I'm very happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Petru. Thank you so much. I'm very excited.
Me too. And I'll tell you why. The most important reason here is because actually the content you do, I think is everyone following BIMvoice was dreaming for me to make it, And that's why I'm very, very grateful for you, man, because I never got the time to learn myself to use Blender and Blender BIM to such advanced degree and to do that. Because in a corner of my mind, I had that ambition, but I just never got the time to do it. I always had other stuff on my plate. And I'm very, very grateful for you for doing this, because this is amazing. This is hugely amazing and important for the community. And I'm very, very happy that now even me, I can go to some tutorials and learn how to do some stuff. Like the content you do, it's crazy good. Thank you very much.
Your content is crazy good. And honestly, when I started, I thought there were 3 people who would probably create tutorials, and you were one of them. It's you, it's Demeter from Studio Academy, and then there's another guy named Arendelle. I thought these are the 3 people who know what's happening and are going to make tutorials.
Yeah, I understand. No, but that's perfect. The kind of content I will make quite soon is more directed towards how actually to check information, how to make requirements and so on. I'm because it's easier, because this is what I use at work. It's much easier for me to do something that I need to learn for work as well, right? And it's more difficult to find time, just especially for something that I will not use at work in the near future. It's also very little motivated to do that just for the sake of making some tutorials. So for me, usually how I make content that I'm very keen and motivated to learn myself about. And this is not that I was not interested to learn how to use much better Blender BIM and so on, but it was just not a good fit with the curiosity, work need, and the time. That's it. And when we talk about that, so I will make right now my focus. It's when it comes to openBIM, it's a lot on IDS. So I will have quite a lot of content in the future about IDS and IFC OpenShell in general and so on. So I'll leave Blender BIM and everything you do to you. Yeah, okay, so we already went too deep into this. Let's dial back a bit and tell us who you are, and let's scale from there then.
I'm Lloyd Bussio. I'm the IFC architect, as people would know. I'm a registered professional architect in South Africa. I operate out of Johannesburg, and I've been using Blender BIM since it existed, basically, from 2019, when Dion had this proof of concept, and I was like, this looks amazing. And yeah, it kind of evolved from there. Yeah, I don't know what more information we need for this context, but yeah, I've just been using that, and then I've eventually gone to the OS Arc community, and along the way I found your channel, because I needed to understand BIM if I wanted to use it properly. Because I find, even though I'd been using like Revit for a long time, I didn't really understand BIM, So I found your channel, and I found the concepts were much more accessible. And, I know, sorry, you said we've gone too far into it already, but I find that I made the channel to be like a starting point, because a lot of the stuff overlaps with what you're talking about. But if somebody really wants to understand what's happening, they can go to BIMvoice and, oh, there's the explanation. I don't have to make that.
Yeah, that's cool. That's very cool. I don't remember. I don't talk too much on the forums. I'm most of the time in the chat, in the live chat in OS Arc, but not in the forums. So I don't know if you were active in the forums already, or you just started out of the blue, just making videos and publish them on YouTube. How was this
transition? So when the forum was created, I was like, so I'm the opposite of you, basically. I spend most of my time on the forums, and I don't sit on the chat at all, because I don't know if you know much about South Africa. We have like load shedding and there's outages and stuff. So having like a constant feedback is not, it doesn't work very well. And like even right now, my laptop is not connecting to the internet. So it's like causing another issue. But so I can't really rely on that. So I prefer like sending a message and then receiving one later and in our own time, basically. So I'm on the forum every single day. I check everything. Like there's not a single message on the forum I haven't read, even if I'm not interested in it. So like I'm just like, if somebody has some sort of insight, I can get it there. But yeah, I've been like on the forum since it started, but I only joined in like 2021, I think. And then I was a little bit active, mainly on the Blender BIM side. So there's so much stuff happening on OSOC, obviously. But anything Blender BIM and anything like drawing related, I was on that. And there's probably like two other people who, no, there's quite a few now, but then it was like Theory Shaw, Ryan Schultz from Opening Design, and then Cohen, I don't know Cohen's surname, but if you're on the OSOC chat, you can see him. They really understand, they know how to use these things. And then Bruno Perdigao, I think his surname is. Those three people are probably like, they're so on top of things. It's crazy. Like I see if there's a message from them, it's gold because I can use that information later. I joined like 2021. And then I think last year, after the drawing, so Blender BIM is broken into like different modules. After the drawing module was like refurbished, I realized, oh, I could use this for like proper council submissions and construction drawing. On the scale of work I'm working on right now, which is like small residential houses, basically. I was like, okay, I don't need to use Revit. I'm quite happy to walk away from Revit and AutoCAD. I thoroughly dislike both of those programs. And unfortunately, they're the standard, but I'm not coordinating with anyone. My projects are so small, I'm the only one who has to look at the working drawings. So I can experiment, but actually, produce like working drawings. And I started to do that. And I haven't touched Revit or AutoCAD since October last year.
Wow. So right now you are doing everything with Blender BIM?
Yeah, everything.
Oh my God, man. This is huge. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done. Okay, now it makes more sense when I'm thinking back to the videos you made. It makes sense, definitely makes sense. Well done. Don't you miss, like, I never try to make a drawing with Blender BIM. To what degree do you have control when you make them? Because can you format them in A4 or A3 or A1, A0? It's not difficult to do that?
Not difficult at all. No, because your output is an SVG, right? Like when you print out. So even if Blender BIM doesn't know how to format it, which it does now, I used Inkscape to like fix everything off. I'm not saying it was an easy process in the beginning. It's so much easier now. Like it's actually insane how much easier it is. But I used just whatever tools I needed, most of them are open source, and I got the results out. Because in South Africa, we don't have like, when we submit to a council, we don't have to submit 3D models. We don't have to submit a lot of stuff. It's all paper, basically. And even if it's an online submission, it's a PDF. So there's no like metadata attached to that submission. It's something you could literally draw by hand if you wanted to. So I had a very low bar, especially for like small residential projects. But I've been using, like I said, I've been using it since October last year, like for my professional work. And since then I'm using it on 4 residential projects, and 2, 3, 4 different site development projects, like large scale residential projects. That's where I'm like meeting the edges of what's possible, but still I don't need like nothing I wouldn't have to deal with in AutoCAD or Revit.
Wow. Do you hear that? Other architects? Do you hear that? It is possible. Just give it a try. How much time would you say that an architect, like let's say other architects that do the same kind of projects, not more complex or something like that with more people involved, because then there are other issues, right? But for this kind of like small projects, how much time would an architect need to watch your YouTube channel, learn how you do, or maybe even buy your course? I don't know if you edit that course, because I wanted to buy that day, but I don't have time to go to 6 hours or how long it was. Make it short and I'll be the first one who buys it. Make it shorter, make it 1 hour or 2 hours and I'll buy it. 6 hours, is just too spread. How much time would you say that somebody will need to grasp the basics and to start using it?
So if you already use like a 3D, like if you already know how to use Revit or ArchiCAD, Blender, so there's Blender and then there's Blender BIM, right? So you have to know both of those things a little bit. You need to know Blender a little bit. Blender, like, you can be comfortable with it in an afternoon, if you ask me. Like, for me, it took me a month to fully understand Blender, because I feel like the way of thinking is just so similar compared to other programs. Whereas like Revit, it took me a long time to figure out like the ins and outs of Revit. But I think after a month of Blender, it was sorted, and I was using it properly on the first day I used it. You know, it's not like there was no barrier, there was no errors popping up in front of me telling me I can't do something. You know, so it was quite fun because you can like explore. You know, as opposed to other programs.
I'm thinking also that might also be a limitation or a risk if you don't see these messages, right? I'm not talking about crashing errors. I'm talking about like some, maybe there are some things that are defined that some kind of elements are not possible to be in another way, right? So in Blender, you can do it even wrong, right? So it's a bit, from that point of view, it is a challenge maybe, right? And still, I don't know if this will ever be possible. I don't know. Maybe it will, to have that interaction or that way, interactive way between drawings and the model, to be able to, because right now the drawings are just some snapshots, right? Some views taken from the model, right? They are not like, you cannot edit the drawing and the modifications will reflect in the model like you do in Revit, right? You cannot do that in Blender with Blender BIM.
Well, you can't, but I don't know, like when you now in Blender, since the most recent like upgrade iteration, since the last stable updates, right? There's kind of like a drawing preview when you cut a plan. So when you look at it in the model, in the plan, it kind of shows you what it's going to look like, kind of like as close as AutoCAD. So you can edit the model from the 2D, from the plan view. And that's kind of how I do it most of the time. It's in 3D, but we're looking from the plan, from the camera view. I don't know, like for me, there's more of an interaction, because I'm not going to separate kind of spaces to see what the 2D looks like versus the 3D. When I'm in the 2D, I can just drag the mouse and it'll shift to the 3D. And for me, there's more of an interaction there.
Okay. So you don't feel that there is any limitation regarding this? You feel that the drawings are not just some dead documentation that you cannot interact with and you cannot use it. Like you feel that there is something in there.
There's a connection for sure. Maybe not to the extent of Revit or ArchiCAD. I think there is like a deliberate kind of, you can separate them if you want to. And there's control in that. I think there's lots of control in that. If you don't want something to show that's in the 3D model, Blender BIM is like, yeah, I'm happy to do that. But I think they're quite connected, and it's very flexible. For me, it's incredibly flexible. There's obviously, it's not as efficient. Like this program is 2019, right? That's 4 years. But honestly, it's only really been at this kind of level since last year. But it immediately took off. Like the rate of change is insane. So it seems to me like you're not going to be able to do as much, not because you can't do it, but because it's not as efficient to get to that result. So I'm going to use Revit as the example all the time, because that's just the world I was in. But in Revit, it's kind of, it knows, it already has an idea in mind, Revit, of what you want. And that's kind of the limitation of Revit. So you have to work very hard if your idea doesn't match that predefined version of a plan or of a wall or any of that. Whereas Blender BIM is more of, okay, we're going to start kind of from scratch and we're going to load things in as you need them. You can create standards, you can create templates, but I'm not going to assume that you want anything. I'm going to assume that what you want is a 3D model, which is an IFC, which is going to be validated. And I'm going to assume you want some sort of 2D documentation with that. That's kind of as broad as it goes. That's just from my experience. It's not like a technical.
No, it makes sense. And to be honest, I'm not interested at all in the drawings part. I know that this is still relevant in most places, but in Norway, this is not starts to not be a requirement anymore on projects, and is just the model, right? And for that purpose, then it's even better.
Yeah.
Actually, Revit is quite good exactly for this, to make documentation, right? But Blender BIM might be even better for making documentation, putting the documentation, the information, the metadata in the IFC. But at the same time, I had this chat with Dion many times on this, and there are still most of the places around the world still need drawings, and that's why there is this freelancer helping the project, and he's focusing That's why you have seen these improvements on the drawings module, because the focus is on that.
Yeah, I know the freelancer. I don't know if it's a woman or a man, but their work is awesome. They're so responsive and it's so fun. I don't know. It's fun.
In the chat or on the in forums?
Not even on the forums. Well, they are on the forum, but more on the GitHub page.
Okay, so interact. You make some requests there. You file some bugs there, and you communicate through issues.
Yeah, like instant conversation, and then it's amazing. And to your point that we still need 2D drawings, I'd seriously think like it's a concept, but the whole of the internet is kind of like North bias, Europe, English speaking bias. And anywhere that you're not there, you're going to realize people would rather have a pen and paper than Revit because that's how they communicate. Like when I go to sites, even though it would literally cost me less to buy an iPad for every project and give that to the contractor. They're like, no, I need an A1, A0 drawing of what this is going to look like so I can sketch on it when your design doesn't work. And then I'm going to talk to you and this is how we're going to think, So it's kind of like, I feel like Norway especially, and the whole Scandinavia, but certain countries as well, are like so far in the future that it's not even applicable to how I work right now. Where I can't even, like, there's no use for me. I need 2D drawings. But it's nice. IFC is nice because I know eventually we're going to get there. So if I work in a format that is going to be future-proofed in a way, and not a Revit file where some of my Revit files from like 3 years ago I can't open because of something, like I don't know why, then it future-proofs my whole course of action, which is like one of the reasons I really fell really hard into BIM because I saw the future and I was like, it's still applicable for me,
Exactly. It's crazy. Yeah, this right here, right? You just have a free software that you will always be you have the possibility to open your models in it without altering anything. It's still not even official yet, right? So it's still 0.9 or what it is.
It's pre-alpha. It's not even, it's 0.0xx. There isn't even a first edition number. We're doing it by dates. So like, yeah. And Dion is phenomenal. Let me put that in there.
Yes, of course. Dion is doing a monumental job, of course.
Absolutely.
And Thomas as well.
Thomas, amazing for building the platform that everything's standing on right now. I mean, yeah, I admire them so much.
There are also some other contributors later. The number of contributors has increased. Yasin is also contributing a lot. Vukas is also contributing, and yeah, the number of contributors has increased. And but the most important, I think, is like Dion, Thomas. They are constantly, and the freelancer. I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know his or her name, but he's working like 50%, or like something like 20 hours a week or something like that, which is very, very impressive. And I'm really looking for what is going to happen during this year. I think we will continue to see an accelerated growth.
Yeah. So I started using this in October last year, right? And then I started using it. And then I submitted to my local council and that drawing got approved. So as far as I'm concerned, there's no difference, for people. So I kept going, and then I decided I needed some sort of way to kind of get other people to use this, because if I want people to kind of adopt it, they need to know how to use it, and it needs to be quick. Like they need to, like you said, how long can somebody to get into it? I think if you have a week of Blender and Blender BIM, you can start doing small projects in Blender BIM, and like to a level that can be submitted to council. Maybe not construction level, but for drawing wise, I do not know the requirements for a 3D model because I haven't dealt with that in my world, but I'm sure I can find out with International Building Code and all that. But it's 5 days I think is more than enough time to learn this from anybody who has previous experience and is a professional in not just architects, like engineers, planners, any kind of engineer. I honestly think I've seen the programs the engineers use, and Revit is not suited to them, if you ask me. It is, especially for civil engineering, Revit doesn't, So it makes no sense. I think this is just a much more reasonable direction to go. But yeah, I started the channel, and then a little while ago, sorry, I did mention the course, but I'm still building it. I did that 6-hour course that was just for local architects because I wanted to see how many people would be interested in a free and open source thing. Because like a Revit license, even, which is just one part of like such a process, is the cost of like a fully employed architect in South Africa for a year, nearly, you know? So it's kind of like, well, do I need another employee or do I want a piece of software that one person can use? Because then if one person, it just stacks, it makes no sense. But we're being told this is the way to standardize, and you know, it is the standard, it has been for a while, but it doesn't make sense for our environment. And yeah, I wanted to create a course so people could feel it was legitimate. So we got accreditation. I worked with an incredible person who bought into the vision as soon as I kind of explained it to them. Her name is Angela. She works for a company called CPD Central, which handles our like local development accreditation in my region. Yeah, but she bought into it. She's like, Lloyd, this is incredible. And I'm and the most common question I get is, so why don't more people use this? And I'm like, because it's very new. It's like very, very new, and people don't know how to use it.
I would add to that I think many people think it's too good to be true.
Absolutely. And I thought if I had a course where I'm available to answer their questions, that would kind of pull it down, you know, and that they can start implementing instead of waiting. Thank you so much for your opinion of my videos, but I find that a lot of people still don't grasp the basic concepts. When I'm talking to people afterwards, I try to answer every single question. Obviously, that's going to be impossible at a certain point. But when I'm talking to people, there's something very basic that doesn't align in their head when it comes to not even how it's working, but there's always a step that messes them up. And maybe that's what you're saying, like, because there's no warning sign or there's no error message that pops up, you can continue well after you've made the issue. And I've done that so much, but that's just the process, you know, it's different. It's more like SketchUp and AutoCAD than it is like Revit or ArchiCAD or even Rhino.
I'm thinking, you know, I think that maybe a combination of even if you don't use the model by itself, but you model your building, right, or your project, it would be cool to check it not necessarily for clash control, but for quality of the building, right? Using an IFC, like you can of course do it even with Blender, right? But maybe with another tool where you can, I don't know, check a set of parameters or something. Or maybe you can actually, we can think about, this is something, just an idea we just sparked right now in my brain. Maybe it's possible actually to make a Python script or something which can check some of this stuff. I don't know, if you have your walls as thick as they are supposed to be, for the, like, maybe use an IDS to check that. I don't know. Something like that. But IDS does not check clash control. Maybe you would actually need to do also clash control even if you don't have other disciplines, although you definitely have MEP, but you can have a clash control and see if you have modeled all the walls correctly, if they don't connect in a wrong way, right? If they don't overlap or something like that. There are things like that maybe could be done, but you did not think about that because you become so expert, you know, that's the thing. But beginners stuck there, you know, and if they do an error and they build on top of that, then you don't find the answer. Like it's much more difficult, and it's much easier to give up when you are not sure what you are doing, right? Where is the issue here? How can we help actually hold the hand for the beginners a bit better, so it's easier to avoid doing serious mistakes, let's say?
Yeah, it's a big question. It's obviously like a threshold that we need to pass for the software to actually be adopted on a large scale. But I still think it's kind of fine how it is because it's not to say these kind of issues don't exist in AutoCAD or Revit.
No, AutoCAD is the same. Sorry. AutoCAD is the same, right? Because you can do everything you want. That's a blessing and a curse in the same time, right? That's the difference with Blender and ArchiCAD. Like you are limited, and that's a good thing in a way, right? But at the same time, you cannot be creative, or you have other limitations. Like it's difficult to find what is actually best, you know?
Yeah, it depends on the person, but sometimes it depends on the company. But I think even with Revit, like you can say we have those limitations, but like a big part of my job was finding out how to break those limitations because that was like what I spent. I want to do this roof that is like this strange shape, and I need to document it properly. And most of the time, it ended up being I built it in Rhino or SketchUp, and then I brought it into Revit as a reference, and then documented it in Revit. But it's and you know, all those errors and messages like ignore. That's kind of the same problem, except there's no error in Blender BIM. You know what I mean? Like this file is still getting corrupted. It's probably a big reason why I can't open some of my older files. But you know, like it's agrees with us and doesn't stop us from doing things. Otherwise, pencil is going to still reign supreme, at least on my side of the world for now.
Pencil? What is pencil? Like you mean the physical pencil?
A physical pencil, yeah. I mean, people drawing and drafting, like that's our go-to.
The fact that Revit license is so expensive, like as employing an architect or an engineer for 1 year, which is quite crazy, would make like Blender BIM a better candidate in countries where this is a real issue. This is not the case here. In Norway and Western Europe, nobody thinks about that. They just buy Revit. Everyone buys the best tools, the best trainers and everything, right? They don't think about this. But this is, let's not forget that most of this world, it actually doesn't have these living standards, right? Norway, it's a small country. Almost everyone has a Tesla. So that's not the standard, you know? It won't be a problem for anyone to buy a Revit license. But the problem is, although still there are some cases for Blender BIM here as well, because of the modeling, right? And the IFC schema emulation, which is not matched by any other platforms. And it's still some use case. But from a point of view of drawings and so on, but the combination because you have free AutoCAD alternatives, right? But that's not the point here. The point is to have like alternatives to something like Revit that you can model and then you can extract drawings as well, right? And this makes it a very, very use case and very interesting case for many countries in the world, let's say. And yeah, that's an interesting point to make, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of it's nearly the most valid point for me because
exactly. And like you said about I forgot the name of the lady who asked you why not everyone is doing this.
Yeah, Angela. Yeah,
Angela. Yeah, like she said, why not everyone is doing this? I think it will gain more traction and more traction. I still think there are also places where people are using Revit without a license. There definitely these kind of cases. I don't know how much Revit or Autodesk crash down on this, but at the same time, to have a real alternative to make your projects, to model and make the documentation without needing to pay anything, that would be a huge release for many companies around the world. And yeah, what can I say? Like, I think it's very difficult when you don't see this light at the end of the tunnel. But when you have cases like you, that's why your YouTube channel is growing, it's exploding. Soon you will overtake me, definitely. Because you are doing practical things that people need, and this will definitely happen. More people will learn and try to replicate that in their work. And that's very, very good. I'm very happy for that. At the same time, the features and the Blender BIM itself, it will only improve, right?
Yeah.
And more supporters will come. Because people, if they don't need to stress about a license, they will afford to make a donation or something like that, right? And at the same time, there is also Ryan Schultz, like you said, and other people using it, but there are not so many materials out there. And this is exactly what you're doing. Like you said, that you waited for me, him, and other guys. What you are doing is exactly what everyone needed, actually, to use it practically. Because this is how things change. Because you are in a corner, you don't have an option, you make a breakthrough, and then you share it with the world, right? And then, like, people cannot say that this is just theoretically, right? No, nobody can say that because you are doing that at work. Like, if you do that, I have no doubt that people in India can do the same, or Pakistan, or Iran, or in many other places, right? So there are no excuses anymore, and they have free videos for that. And if they want to accelerate their learning, they should buy your course, of course, because that's how it is. You will find, like, you find the information spread across, like, on a YouTube channel. But at the same time, if you want premium structured information and so on, like, you are investing in yourself. It should not be like, it's not like a high ticket course or something that somebody needs to pay $10,000. It's like affordable course. I don't know what the price is, but I think it's very affordable. I don't think you are selling high ticket courses. And if people want to accelerate their learning, and just think about just not needing to pay a license for Revit, just learning very quickly and doing your work using these tools. And like, this is life changing.
I think so. I mean, it has been for me. It has been for me because I wouldn't have been able to start my own firm, work by myself if I had to pay for a Revit license. And since I've stopped working at other companies, I've stopped using Adobe products as well because I can't afford that either. I stopped using, what else? There's like a few things that it adds up. It adds up a lot.
What did you replace that with, Affinity or Inkscape and other open source tools?
Illustrator, I'm using Inkscape now. Photoshop, I use Krita and GIMP, both of them. Krita is kind of missing. I don't know if missing or if there's an add-on, like interaction with PDF, which is kind of essential, but GIMP handles that. So I mainly use Krita, and then I use GIMP when I need to do more hard kind of stuff. And then instead of InDesign, I use Scribus, which is it's very hard to use, but it does the same thing. But there's lots of alternatives, and even Affinity, there's so many. Like, if you want something that looks exactly like Photoshop, there's an online thing called Photopea.
Yeah. You find websites. Yeah. I have also Affinity, but I never use it. I use Canva, to be honest, but you cannot use Canva, but it's for like social media stuff mostly. I cannot make drawings or something. But Affinity, I think, is like, what I like about it. I'm making free marketing here right now, but maybe somebody can use it, right? Because it's like a Photoshop, like Adobe suite, which is much more affordable, and it has a fixed one-time fee. And like, you paid once and you use it forever, right? And it makes sense. You get the same. You'll need to invest some time, of course, to learn how to use them, but it's not like rocket science. It's not more complicated than Photoshop and other tools, right? So
No. And if you really know Photoshop, it's so easy to switch over to these alternatives. It's so easy.
yeah. And now tell me something, actually. You went through this. You had this breakthrough. Like, do you ever see yourself going back to Revit?
No, never.
Do you see situations where you might need to do that?
If I am coordinating with like a consortium on a really big project, I'm gonna convince everybody to use Blender BIM, I'll be honest. Or I'm gonna say, give me IFC files and I'll do my work and you do your work, because the coordination with Revit is bad, if you ask me, as it is. So, especially in South Africa, I've never coordinated properly on a project. I know I haven't reached that goal of what it should be, It's often just, here's my file, you figure it out. Here's my file. We're not doing things, well, some people are, but I've never had that experience. So for the most part, I would try and convince people to use IFC. That's the one brilliant thing about IFC. I can say, this is an international standard. Give me an IFC file. I will use that. And I will contribute geometry to that. And we can annotate and document separately. So I don't see myself. But if I had to say, if I were jumping into like a very large project within the next year, I'd probably still have to use a bit of Revit in combination.
But I guess you would ask the client to provide you with a license or something.
Yes, I would hook it onto the price. Definitely. Which makes it, they'd be like, why would we do that? No, everybody should use. But yeah, it's interesting.
Okay. Yeah, please go ahead if you want to work onto something.
It's just that I find that it's kind of like we've been told in the AECO industry that you need to head towards BIM, and that's kind of like what everybody's kind of been told for the last 10 years, at least in my mind. And a lot of firms, especially one-man bands and small firms, they still use like AutoCAD because they're like, I can do everything in AutoCAD. I don't need this. My engineer uses AutoCAD because they don't care for Revit, and when they're doing engineering stuff, they're not using Revit, they're using engineering programs, they're using Tekla, they're using something else, So it doesn't coordinate anyway. So for me, it's like, what I'm really trying to capture or whatever is people who want to make that jump, but it's such a huge jump, like cost, time, and then it doesn't work as well as it used to. And I'd say, here's an alternative. It costs you nothing. You just got to figure out how to use it. And it's an international standard. And that kind of rings in people's heads. And I'm like, you can open this file in Revit. It's not going to be perfect, but the geometry is going to be there. You know, Revit might think the wall is a roof or whatever, and same for ArchiCAD. But the point is, you can change it, and it's yeah. I don't know. I see a huge market for people who are in the same position as me, and they need somewhere to go. They want a 3D modeler. They want to use all those tools. Like you can say, like I don't use most of the clashing software or any of that part, but I do use like the cost calculations, quantities. I pull quantities out of the model, which you can't do easily with a 2D Revit drawing, with a 2D AutoCAD drawing. You can do it in Revit, but I've never been proficient enough to get the right things out of it. You know what I'm saying? So in Blender BIM, it's super easy. I can get an area for a window and I can get a calculation that I've got, and I can just hook it to an ODS file, which I already got everything sorted out. Instead of having to sit with schedules and figure out what's happening, you know, it's very straightforward. And I've used it in like 4 projects now just to do base costing. I'm not a quantity surveyor, so I won't like claim that, but I think even for quantity surveyors, this is super useful. Super useful. Like
Yasin is using quite a lot this for quantities, and I did not use it, but it's definitely something very important for a lot of people. You mentioned also Tekla. Would you say that Blender BIM could become also an alternative for Tekla?
For sure. Eventually. Not right now, but for sure.
What would you say that is the challenge? Why is Blender most or best for architects for now?
I think because, to be honest, it's architect-led. Like Dion is an architect, you know. So it's, even though he's very technical and he's brilliant, but he's definitely got his vision is through the lenses of an architect. And if you want it to get further, we need engineers, we need civil structural MEP people to come in, because there are even people asking me for MEP tutorials, and like I will do it, but I'm an architect. You know, even to do it properly in a not pre-alpha software is going to take me a little bit of time, and I want to convey it to you in a way that you could do it in an afternoon, you know, and you don't have to know anything else. There's a few people who are constantly saying, please do MEPs, please do plumbing, please do electrical, please, you know, and it's like, I honestly, so I've started.
With your understanding of it, you should do it. Like people will have something to start with, because that's the problem. They are not interested in making the walls, right? They will understand then how to do more advanced stuff that you don't understand or you don't need to understand, but they don't know how to get there, you know?
Yes, yeah. No, exactly. But yeah, I want to give like a format for how to get to step 1. That's kind of the whole purpose of the channel. And then when they have more complicated questions, they can go to BIMvoice. If they have design decisions, they can go to Studio. If they have very technical problems, I always direct them to the OSR community, because I'm like, there's 100 other people here who know what they're talking about. I'm just one guy. It's fun to be part of a community that cares about this, and it's exciting.
Let's round this up with something practical. Let's say that there are architects that are watching this or listening to this talk right now, and they got inspired and they say, okay, I will do it. I want to do this. If this guy can do it, and he is also making everything, the tutorials and everything, I want to do it. What are the steps that he or she should follow to get this done quick as possible? Do you have prepared a playlist in your on your channel that do this list to go through, or the course, or maybe the basic Blender stuff you don't have? Maybe
I don't have basic Blender stuff, just because there's so much out there.
Yeah, it's a lot. So you don't need, actually, I myself watched some tutorials like learn Blender in 20 minutes, and you learn the basic stuff. You don't need more than that to start with. That's everything you need, actually.
Yes, that's all you need. So I do have a playlist of it's called Blender BIM 101. It's got most of my videos in there without some of the others. I think probably the easiest way to get started, I've got 5 videos they're in the playlist, they're in order, but it's like modeling, 2D drawings, sections, elevations, details, and layout. That's probably the only thing you really need to get going. And the problem with the YouTube channel is that it's done sequentially. So when there's an update, I kind of need to, some things are not applicable anymore, but the understanding you got from that, like how it works, is still there. It's just sometimes easier to do now. And people are saying, But yeah, so that there's 5 videos. The first one starts with modeling in 20 minutes. If you start there, that's probably the easiest kind of process. But if you want something, because I also enjoy getting like an output out of this thing, it's my most popular video. But a plan in 20 minutes, and I've got an update for that, which it's just kind of like you can start, you don't need to know anything, and in 20 minutes you will have an SVG of a plan. So I think that kind of gets people excited because they go, oh wow, it's very fast. So those are the 2 things. But when I do this course, which I'm busy doing right now, that will probably be the easiest thing to get going.
What do you mean that you are doing it right now? Don't you have it recorded already? Are you editing it or are you re-recording it?
I'm editing it and I'm re-recording some portions. Yeah.
Okay. So to make it more compact and on point.
Like you said, 6 hours. It's a bit of a pill to swallow. It's a whole working day.
Yes. Especially if it's like an workshop, right? And yeah, it needs to be a bit. There are courses on like 30 hours, right? But I don't think it needs to be so long. And you said that during the workshop you had definitely a lot of questions and answering or something like that, right? You don't need to have that, right? You need to be on point. Very cool. Let me know when you have it ready. Did you think, how will you sell that? Will you sell it? Which platform will you have it on? How will people be able to buy it if they will be interested?
Yeah, so the information will be free. So I'm going to probably tackle all of that information in the YouTube channel and elsewhere, but it just won't be in this format. But once I've edited everything, I'm going to put it on everything. It's going to be on Skillshare, Udemy. It's going to be on as many platforms as I can find, just so that anybody can find it wherever they prefer to do it. And it's going to be very cheap. It's going to be like, because I want it to be cheap for me. You know what I mean? Like if I had to take this course, I don't want it to be like a burden.
Yeah. Like how much did you say? It's okay to say how much?
Probably somewhere between, sorry, I don't know in euros, but like probably 100 Rand. So it's, I don't know, that's like 10 euros. I don't know. Maybe it's probably less. I think it's less.
10 euros? Are you kidding me?
Is that a joke? Is that bad? I don't want it to be behind a big ass paywall is all.
I understand, but I think everyone who can spare using a Revit license should have no problem to pay $50 or something like that, at least, or $100. Just my opinion. But if you said 10 euros, if that's the price you're thinking, 10 euros, it's like what? It's 10 euros. I cannot even buy a beer here in Norway.
And you're not?
No, not at the bar. I understand making it available for everyone, but like you said, the information is going to be free everywhere, anywhere.
It's just like for people like you who want it in a package where I know I don't have to go anywhere else. This is the only place I need to be. I'll have a disclaimer, which is like, if you want everything, it's all available. But if you want it in, like at the end of today, you know what's happening. This is the only place you need to be. It'll cost you close to nothing. That's kind of the goal.
Yeah, man. You don't need to apologize. You are doing an amazing job. You are a trailblazer with this. You are putting a lot of hours into doing everything available, into making this course, into editing. Like, it should not be a problem. Like, this is a choice, right? I like to buy a lot of courses, and some of the courses I buy are not like, say, life-changing. Some of them are very good, some of them not so much, but at the same time, no matter how bad they are, I still learn something, and investing in myself is the best thing I can do. I'm always thinking like, it's the best thing that I can do, and it's a trade, right? I have 2 choices. One, it's to try to learn myself and waste weeks, or pay $100, $200 and learn in 1 week or in a few days. It's a choice. You either have money, you either have time. No matter where you live, you have this trade, you have this option, right? And if you want to reach quicker your goals, I will definitely buy courses. I will always buy courses, because it's normal. Like it's not that you robbed this course. You created yourself. Like you worked like exactly like you are working in your job, right? Like it's just normal that you should be compensated for that. Like,
yeah, 100%.
You are empowering people using some free tools. You should not be apologetic about that, and you should not feel guilty at all for having a decent price for you as well, not for just for everyone, since the information is going to be free for everyone anyway. Just a bit of a rant, but and this is telling you something. Someone did not earn $1 with his YouTube channel in the last 3 years. But the mindset, this is the mindset. This should be like, this is how I see this exchange of knowledge and training. Like if I want to work to a Solibri course or to a Revit course or to a Tekla course, you don't want to know how much those courses cost.
They're a lot, yeah. They're a lot.
You don't know, you don't want.
But they're not worth it for me. You know what I mean? Because it's too much money. It's just too much money.
I definitely understand. That. Yeah. And of course, like you said, it's important to be available, to be reachable for everyone. And but again, as long as you have that information for everyone available, nobody can say anything. Like, in what kind of world do we live in? Like, why? Like, it's the same. Like, would you go and do drawings and models for a house you see, like for somebody you see wants to build a house or something? No, that's work, right? It's training. So
it is, and it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work.
I feel you, brother, and I know I know what it means to edit videos and so on. And yeah,
but keep doing what you're doing, Petru, because honestly, it's very important, because I'm never gonna hit this level of detail with what I'm doing. And it's kind of important that you provide like a level of understanding for people that they cannot get from tutorial videos. I'm basically telling them what to do, and they come here for the how and the why, you know?
we complement each other. It's perfect like that. But I will definitely also have some more hands-on tutorials and so on in the future, in the near future, I would say. But I'm also ramping up interviewing, because I've been on and off for lately. Like, I was not, there were more different reasons. I recently started a new job and so on, but now I'm settled myself a little bit, and I'm getting some help, and I'm trying to be more serious, to take it more serious. And I hope this will become even more helpful, because exactly how you see, like what you are offering, what you are doing right now, which is exactly what everyone needed. I see a huge potential with IDS and with other things that are happening, BSDD, with Building Smart, everything connected to openBIM. This is what I'm passionate about. I'm always going to support this, and this is my fight that I will always have for openBIM, not closed BIM. Collaboration is the paramount for me. Like, BIMvoice is going to push a lot of content starting really soon, and I hope I'll manage to keep doing that.
I can't wait. Because while I'm struggling there to record my own videos, I'm listening to yours as it happens.
That's cool, man. That's cool to know. Thank you very much. Yes. Is there anything else you think we did not cover? Yeah, well, there are many things we did not cover, but something else important. When do you plan to launch your course? Do you have a deadline or an estimate or something?
I was hoping to do it by June, but I've recently got a lot of real work to get done. So probably mid-June or end of June. That's probably it. But it will be everywhere, and yeah, it'll be available, and it'll be very cheap. Even in my heart, it's going to be 100 Rand, but like, it will be very cheap. I just don't like inaccessible stuff, and I know to you it's self-improvement, and it is, but for me it's like, okay, it's different.
It's not a problem. Like I said, you do what you feel is best. You stick true to yourself is the most important thing that you can do. If it's an advice I can give you, is this: stick true to yourself. That's the only person that you should stick true to, no matter what. So stick to your principles, and do you, as you say, as people say, right? I think it would be cool actually to have a quick chat also when you launch it. After you launch it and publish it everywhere, we can have a new chat, a brief recording with screen share, and you can show me where it is published or something like that, and what the course has and so on, so people know what they can get for it.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And also thank you for telling me to like put it up as well, though, because it's also good to have other people's opinions on this, especially somebody who's in like a very similar situation. Because yeah, I'll probably run out of money one of these days because I'm making YouTube videos. But like I still think it's worth it though. Yeah. Anyway, Thank you for the interview, though, Petru. And yeah, awesome to meet you.
It was, yeah, I really appreciate everything you do. And yeah, I really appreciate you doing something that I was like everyone was dreaming I would do at some point. So I'm really, really happy. I could not believe when I was watching these videos, and this is exactly what I wanted to do. And I'm so happy somebody did it because I will do some other stuff, which are as important.
Absolutely.
Yes, I'm looking forward to our future conversations, and we'll stay in touch.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.